Two bogus dudes are in a hurry to write the best song in the world. They have nothing, nobody remembers them, and they're running out of funds because they have two wives and two kids. That's right. On this episode, we're talking about Bill and Ted Are Doomed, published by Dark Horse Comics. So grab your time machine and head to the future because you're listening to a Kind of Garbage podcast comic edition.
It's a kind of...
So, Cody, I decided to pick a comic that is a sequel to Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey and a prequel to, I can't remember what the movie's called, Bill and Ted Face the Music. There we go, got it. So this comic, the first thing that jumped out to me when I was looking for something for us to do was the art style, which I think it's almost in that underground tone of like Robert Crumb or just someone who has like a realistic yet cartoony depiction of people. And it was something that really jumped out to me. How did you like the artwork?
I liked some bits of it. The cover work was good. I saw the cover and I think there's a variant. They were both good. There was a few panels on the inside though that just felt really almost like a web comic. Some of it I liked, some of it I didn't. I found that like, especially on the cover, the way that it's colored in is kind of has like that 90s underground comics look. But then when I went through some of the interiors later on, like some of it didn't seem like that. It just seemed like it was just very rushed. Like a lot of the color work and shading and the detail just really fell away in the interiors, which I get, but it just, I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of the art. Let's put it that way.
I completely agree with you. The cover I think is amazing. Like I love the look of it. The interior, some of it looks like a penny arcade comic, which it's not a bad art style. It almost doesn't fit the tone. And I wish that the cover artist did all of the interior for the cover that we saw, which is the group of characters kind of like looking down. I'm going to assume looking down at the ground, like in a U shape almost.
Yeah. So the cover that I saw, I know the interiors are done by Roger Landridge, and I don't know if he's the one who did the variant cover.
Roger did the variant cover, and then the standard cover was done by Evan Dorkin with Sarah Dreyer.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to assume it was the standard cover because the interior art is done by Roger Langridge. Yeah. So I would assume that cover like looks totally different from what's in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, like my problem with the art is that this is going to be probably like a 5-issue comic or a 6-issue comic. Some of the interior art has the feel of like Bill and Ted went public domain and someone's making like a web comic, like a weekly web comic based on it.
Yeah, the character design, Bill's character looks great. The way that they draw his eyes, the whole aesthetic for him looks amazing. Ted's character, I can't get into that hair. Most of the time, the hair is like double the width of his head, and it's just too much. And yeah, I can't. I look at the Ted character, I'm like, well, that doesn't really look like Keanu. Is it supposed to? Not, I guess not really. But I didn't like the way his head looked like.
Yeah, I get that, but I think that brings up the whole issue of like I know Keanu Reeves. He's got like someone's making a comic and Keanu Reeves, they've like gotten Keanu Reeves permission to use him as the look of the main character. So I'm wondering if the issue with like drawing this is that they're allowed to use the names of the character and everything, but maybe Keanu Reeves is like, I kind of already have like a comic book thing going on that I've signed off like my image and likeness to. So can you just make this guy kind of look like a generic shaggy-haired 90s teenager?
Yeah, they nailed Alex Winter's eyes, and that's the whole thing. Once you get the character's eyes, everything else falls into place. Keanu's eyes in this, it doesn't match for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I guess we should jump into what the story of this book is. Rufus gets called to like the time people who I guess monitor time and the future and whatnot, and Bill and Ted are going to be in trouble again. They're struggling to write the best song in the world, and everyone in their home city has either forgotten about their band or think they suck. They're running out of money because they won $25,000 at the end of Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
So they need money now to, I guess, pay the bills, and they both have their wives and their daughters with them living in the same house. There's no structure to where they're living, so you don't have an idea of like this is where the bedroom is. They might get into that later on, but there's nothing mapped out in this.
And that kind of had the issue with me was the comic book picks up after the the original movie's sequel where they've won the contest, but it just kind of jumps into assuming that they became like the most successful band in the world, but then like they've already started to fall off, like they're on the tail end of their career already. So it kind of skips over the whole like what exactly happened immediately following Bogus Journey. Bogus Journey ends on a high, and then this comic starts off with like they're basically back to being like a garage band that nobody respects.
I don't even know. Like I tried getting into this and I was excited to read it. And as I'm reading it, it just keeps on going on and on and on. They go talk to Death because Death is the bassist in their band. And there's like this recurrent joke that Death wants to have like what a 2 hour bass solo.
Yeah, like he keeps wanting. Yeah, the joke is that they kick Death out of the band, or they're kind of at odds with him because he wants too much creative control in the band, even though it's like a band he joined when it was already founded. His contribution is that he just wants like nonstop bass solos.
The story basically just goes in the way of everybody has different ideas of what they want to do. I'm not going to get into it because it doesn't matter, and it's just almost like an afterthought. The people who control time are making like this massive record player that's going to record time, I think.
Yeah,
But then at the end of the first issue, like something in Bill and Ted's garage blows up, and then the moon and the earth shake, and then there's like a tornado in space, and then this record player starts zapping around, like turning and making sounds, and then there's like, oh no, what's happening? And then it's like to be continued. And right when I finished reading it, I'm like, oh, to be continued. I don't care.
yeah, I feel really bad. I have like, I don't know. I guess I don't really have like a very strong relationship with the Bill and Ted movies. Like I remember seeing them when I was younger, but it's one of those things where I kind of have this a similar thing with Die Hard, where anytime like these movies were already out of theaters by the time I was old enough to watch them, so I always caught them on TV. I probably saw the sequel like at least 10 times to one for how many times I saw the sequel versus the original. So I everything I know about Bill and Ted, like every scene that I think of when I think of Bill and Ted is from Bogus Journey, which I don't think is that great of a movie. Like Excellent Adventure's the better movie, but I never like I can't remember anything from Excellent Adventure. And I like I said, I have a similar thing with Die Hard. Like anytime I think of Die Hard, all I think of is the airport because I've seen Die Hard 2 1,000 times more than I've seen Die Hard 1 just from growing up, and that was the one that got played on whatever movie channel I had.
Even with Bill and Ted, I have both. I think I have both of them on DVD. They haven't been opened because I have no urge to rewatch them. And when I say rewatch them, I use that term very loosely because these two movies, the only way I've ever seen them was on Fox 29 during their Sunday matinee. And every single time I saw them, it was in bits and pieces. And I've never seen those movies from the start to the end.
Yeah.
So even if you ask me what happens, I can tell you the gist of it, and just from what you hear from people, parries and whatnot. But I don't remember the movies other than they go into a time machine, telephone booth with George Carlin, and they fight their clones. I think in both movies. I'm probably wrong because yeah, Bill and Ted mean nothing to me.
No, Bill in the second movie, oh man. Yeah, like the first movie is them having to go through history to assemble like historical figures to do a book report or to do a history report or something. The second movie is about them having to write like the best song in the world or something. And there's evil, what is it? There's actually like a physical villain in the second movie who builds robot replacements of Bill and Ted to like replace them so that no one knows that they're gone. And then Bill and Ted die, make friends with Death, come back to life, build their own robot versions, and then befriend an alien. And then all of them team up to like beat the evil robots at a battle of the bands, which is definitely a confusing premise. I think, yeah, like I've seen the second one so much more. And I think maybe one of the reasons why the first one holds up is it is such a simple premise. Like the entire premise of the first one is Bill and Ted are these like two kind of slacker, goofy dudes that just, I can't even remember like what the setup is for why they need to do good on this book report, but they need to do good on it. And then that's the movie. Like the movie is just two idiots trying to pass a high school history class, and then they get roped into traveling through time to meet the historical figures they're supposed to be researching, which it's simple enough that like you can explore it and like walk around it and have fun with it. Like Bill and Ted go to the past. Bill and Ted meet all of like, these like historical figures, and they interact with them, and they're not who you think they are. And, Bill and Ted learn a lesson from them, and they learn a lesson from Bill and Ted. And there's a lot you can do with that. But then Bogus Journey just becomes like, instead of exploring it, it's just like, what if we just keep coming up with like silly situations to put them in? So like, what if they went to hell and then came back? And what if there was robots? And what if there was an alien? And it just kind of gets a little too goofy.
Yeah, if somebody asked us, hey, will you guys watch either of the Bill and Ted movies for your movie podcast? I would say I have no interest in watching those, and they probably wouldn't even make it onto the top 10. So,
Like, I don't know. I don't really have a desire to see the new movie. Maybe someday I'll rewatch the original just because I don't remember much of any of it. So that might be interesting. But yeah, like I don't know. I kind of feel like this is one of those things where it's a franchise that exists in the time period that it exists in. And the original movie is good enough that it could stand on its own and just kind of be like a funny relic of like late 80s culture, and just take it for what it is. Like, I don't feel like it's something that needs to be modernized or refreshed and brought into the year 2020.
so would you recommend this book for people to read and maybe continue following?
I don't know. Like, if the fact that they've come out with a new movie and the new movie's successful enough, it's gotten enough people read, like it's brought in enough new interest to the franchise. Yeah, go for it, I guess. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, I'm looking at right now some of the other, there's been other Bill and Ted comic book series. So I don't know. Like, I guess I don't know if comic books right now are a strong enough medium where like having movie tie-ins for movies that aren't going to be huge blockbusters is really a good business plan. But I guess maybe if they want to do a small run of just 5 issues of a story, yeah, sure, I guess.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think if you're a Bill and Ted like super fan, check it out. If you just want to see what they were doing between Bogus Journey and Face the Music, I guess read on, dude.
Yeah.
So we're at my favorite part, which is where we rank into our top 10.
Mhm.
This one's easy for me. This is going to go right under Crystal Breeze and above James Bond 007, which means this is my new number 10, kicking James Bond 007 Goldeneye, presented by Topps Comics #1 Collector's Edition, off my top 10.
Okay. I don't know. This is a really hard one because it is a new story. So I do want to place it above my number 10 pick of James Bond, of Topps Comics Presents uh, Collector's Edition #1 James Bond. I do want to place it above there because it is a brand new story, but I don't find the story nothing really grabbed me in the first issue to want to know where it's going. So I'm going to actually place it below that. I'm going to say it didn't meet my top 10.
I think that's the first. I was going to say, I think this is the first time something hasn't made our top
Yeah.
10, but I'm pretty sure Plan 9 from Outer Space didn't make our top 10 when we did that. So,
No, fair enough.
so on our next episode, we are reading.
We're going to read my pick, which is the James Stokoe comic, Godzilla Half Century War.
Yeah, so make sure you tune in next time. With that said, we have no listener mail. I was going to say viewer mail. No new Patreons currently, which is okay. Want to thank you for listening and join us next time.
Yeah.
As always, you can find us online through our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram, both at A Kind of Garbage. You can also email us at akindofgarbage@gmail.com with any questions or comments you may have. Be sure to check us out at akindofgarbage.com, where you can find links to our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube pages, as well as our Patreon page at patreon.com/akindofgarbage, where you can get access to our private Discord channel and Patreon exclusive podcasts. Thank you again for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time. So I'm gonna assume that Dark Horse Comics was like, you know what? We fucking lost Aliens and Predator. We need a new IP to make comic books about. What are the kids into these days? Bill and Ted.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an interesting enough franchise that like doing a cash grab like this blatant, like there's a new movie coming out, let's try to get the comic out. But like with all the COVID stuff, like the movie didn't go to theaters, it went to digital. And then with the comics industry like just being in like the garbage right now, like I don't know if it's enough to like get kids to go see the movie, love the movie, and then want to go find the comic and follow it.
Oh, no kids are going like want to watch these movies. These are all like 30s and 40-year-old adults now.
Yeah, which I don't, yeah, like I guess like this is one of those things where this comes out and I just shake my head and go, like, I don't understand the people who operate like in the comic book industry. I don't understand how they're just like, this is what we'll do to stay afloat. Instead of coming out with like new interesting stories and then kind of developing the medium that way, and then I don't know, maybe trying to get other like mass media coverage, like magazines or websites or whatever, to kind of talk more openly about comic books and to say, like, look, these are really interesting comic books that are coming out, or graphic novels or whatever. It's like, let's just do what we did that worked in the 80s and 90s when everything sold. That's it. Like, let's just follow this like dead marketing strategy and just see if we can wring any more life out of it.
Yeah, I think this was a misstep on Dark Horse's part. I don't like, obviously we'll never, well, I'm never going to look at the numbers because I could care
Yeah.
less. But I'm just wondering, like, whose idea was it to get that comic property to try and write stories? Because there's so many dead IPs out there that people might want to know more, and you can write a new canon too. But this is a prequel comic to like a direct to digital movie now that the interest is so not there that I don't even know like what they were thinking.
Yeah.